What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, breaking down the South Point 400 this weekend as we roll the dice in Sin City at Las Vegas. Should be a good one. I do like this track, and we are starting our round of 8 this weekend. And unfortunately, Joey Logano did find himself in the playoffs after kind of an exciting ending last week with Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin. The tire wear really made that Roval race very entertaining. I know SVG won by about 20 seconds, but the racing besides that, even then at times, he did have to pass people like Kyle Larson to reclaim the lead. I thought overall it was a very good race. But anyway, this happens to be your first time here, which I highly doubt at this point of the season. But what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Also do NFL each and every single week, 2 times a week. So if you want to check out those videos, be my guest. If you do enjoy today's video, make sure you like down below. Scratch it for brand new. Let's dive right into it. All right, let's talk some strategy here for Vegas this weekend. Just your typical cookie cutter 1.5 mile track, 267 laps, which equates to, I believe, 186.7, 186.9 downward points available. We have so many races at 267 laps. It's about right around that range, if I remember correctly. So we're looking at 1 to 2 Dom type builds. It just depends on what happens in qualifying. Are all the guys up front that should be? If so, that leads to 2 dominator lineups. Is there a couple of guys in the very back and 1 guy up front that we expect to dominate? Well, that's when you can kind of get to those 1 Dom builds. And I believe earlier in the year, we had a similar situation because I'm pretty sure Ryan Blaney started dead last in this race, unless I'm completely messing that up. But either way, I think you guys kind of get the idea. We're also using a similar tire that we used at Charlotte this year, Kansas, and a couple of other cookie cutters. And I do have that baked into some of the data as well. And we're going to look at a couple of figures this week. So the first one is our 7-race sample size in the next gen era at Las Vegas. And no surprise, the 200 cars are up at the very top, Kyle Larson and William Byron. I would say the only concern heading into this weekend is that they have kind of struggled a bit. Now, we have seen in previous weeks, Kyle Larson seems like he's getting a bit faster. William Byron was pretty disappointing at the Roval, but I mean, that obviously has no comparison to a 1.5 mile oval. And I am recording this at this point right now after practice, and William Byron absolutely crushed it. So we'll see if they end up turning it around. But yeah, Byron, Larson, Ross Chastain's also been very good here. Then you kind of have that next tier of Joey Logano, Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, who put it on the pole, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, and Kyle Busch. And if we look at our next one, this is a larger sample size of just races this year that are at larger tracks. So not looking at any road courses, super speedways, short flats, just larger, like tracks that are over a mile and a half and above, I would say. Now, obviously, clean air can play a big role in this, but that's the name of the game. If you qualify well, you tend to be able to run up front in this car. So William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, those are kind of your big 4 this year. And coming into this season, that's the same big 4 that we usually always see at these larger tracks. So that has held true this season. Chase Briscoe's also been very good. Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, and you kind of have the next tier, the Penske tier almost. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, but Wallace, who showed some speed on Saturday afternoon, and then Christopher Bell as well. So, I mean, it should be no surprise, but these are the guys you're going to see contend. These are the guys they qualified up front. They practice well. They're going to be Vegas favorites. It's just kind of the same thing over and over. They just take turns winning. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown. But I need to mention one thing first, and that's, of course, if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, or NFL, which I do each and every single week, you can check out my new website that I built, cpenndfs.com. Link down in the description or the pinned comment for that. But it's got all the projections on here, all the data in one spot, so it's much easier to access. And of course, the optimizers are on there. And I cover NFL each and every single week too, and Showdown slate. So tons of content over there. If you want to check it out, you can get the first week for free. And as you can see, based off of qualifying, everybody 8K and above, they're all inside the top 15. So not really any outliers as far as big names or big price tags are concerned. Blaney, a little bit of PD, Ross Chastain, but it's nothing like we have bright red spots here. You're not going to see those guys until we get to the 7K range, which is basically all place differential besides Ty Gibbs. So we should have some pretty interesting builds, of course. But I do want to head over to practice because I think we're going to need an idea of who's fast on the track before we actually go driver by driver and break it all down. And looking at our data here, so this is the consecutive lap averages, and like I mentioned before, William Byron absolutely crushed it. Second in the 1 lap, 2 Ty Gibbs, but first in the 5 through 30 lap runs, and he was in Group B. Same with Bubba Wallace, who was also very quick, just not quite as fast. Tyler Reddick was fast. Chase Briscoe. A lot of the Toyotas did show some speed. Chase Elliott. I'm assuming that 23rd in the 15 lap is probably a bit misguided, but we can check that out in the lap by lap, which I think is always way more useful. So we could sort this by groups, but it does seem to kind of be a bit of a mixed bag. And of course, all the are in that second group. So it does make it a bit easier to try to like compare where the contenders are going to be. But as you can see, William Byron, the absolute fastest based off the way I rank things. We do have the fastest laps highlighted in green here throughout their runs. But William Byron overall does rank the best for me. He's best in the consecutive lap averages and best in this. So you have to imagine he's going to have a pretty fast car, which he usually is very fast at Las Vegas. Now, I wanted to mention, Jeff Glugg did tweet this out, that the temperature is going to be a bit different tomorrow, and it's not going to be as windy. So this might not be a carbon copy to tomorrow. I mean, some of the guys that were extremely fast, I'm sure they're still going to be fast. Maybe they're not going to be the absolute best car. So that is just something to think about. I'm not saying throw out practice. If you're fast, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to be fast no matter what the conditions are. So just letting you know. Chase Elliott, also very quick in this metric. Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, which I believe were the first 5 guys based off of these consecutive lap averages, the way I rank this out. So it's always nice when that does line up. But I'm not going to sort this by group because I really don't think it's going to matter as much because all the contenders are basically in Group B, maybe besides Ross Chastain and Carson Hocevar. I'm sure they'll have some speed, but I don't really think we need to compare it too bad. But these are most likely going to be contenders. Now, Denny Hamlin, he's always a bit better during the race than he is during practice. I'm a little bit concerned with Kyle Larson here. If you're looking at his consecutive lap averages, we didn't even mention him because I believe he's a little bit lower on the list. Yeah, ninth in the 1 lap, 22nd in the 5, then 27th in the 10, and 20th in the 15, lap by lap, which kind of gets rid of maybe some errors, or when you pit right before a consecutive lap average would have like at your in lap, just kind of skew it. But still, based off of this, he looked kind of mid, which he qualified much better. So I think Kyle Larson can still be a dominator for sure, but I definitely wish he was a bit faster because his teammate William Byron, when they're out there at the same time, absolutely blew him away. So it was a bit concerning. If we put them on the chart here, you can see William Byron definitely more consistently fast than Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson does beat him a couple of times, but usually is William Byron beating him out. And if you're looking at their average down there, he does have him by a 10th too. Let's get back to it and break this driver by driver. We will start with the 5-figure range first, which I believe we have 6 guys this week, 3 in the 11K range, 3 in the 10K range. And I will be honest, it's kind of difficult to break this down because they're all great options for a reason. I would say based off of practice, William Byron might be the first guy we have to look at. He does start in 5th. Not like we have major place differential upside, but he's on the pole, so there's not complete downside for him. But based off of practice, I would say he looks like he has the best car, which at Las Vegas, that should not be a surprise. He was one of the best cars here in the spring. I think got in traffic a couple of times, which did kind of scream a bit, but he did finish top 5 still. And if we're looking at his Vegas numbers, William Byron has been excellent here. The second best average finish, only behind Ross Chastain. The best average running position. The second best driver rating behind his teammate Kyle Larson. 4 top 5s in the top 10 all but once, in the top 15 every single time. And the 3rd most laps led and 3rd most fast laps. So he's been very good here. We know how good he is at these types of tracks this season. Intermediates, he's been the clean air king, but he can start near the front. He runs up front. He'll get fast laps. And if he's able to get up front, that's when we get that tournament winning upside. So right now, it looks like William Byron might be the guy to beat, but that's not saying he's like in a tier above everybody else because Denny Hamlin's in the pole. He's also very good at Las Vegas. He wasn't bad in practice, and he's won here before, and he's been excellent green flag speed-wise at these style of tracks this year too. So you cannot rule out Denny Hamlin. It's just the price combination of where he's starting, what we saw in practice, and him being cheaper. William Byron looks very, very appealing for that. Joey Logano is probably going to be the one I get to the least of. Was not that impressive in practice, and we just don't usually see him dominate at these kind of tracks. We haven't really seen it this year. If we're looking at the larger track sample size this season, 13 races for Joey Logano, as you can see, his dominator points are much lower than everybody else. I mean, Byron's leading everybody. He's also pretty much tied in fast laps. Joey Logano is so much below everybody else. Kind of same with Christopher Bell, but even then, Christopher Bell has been a bit faster. So Logano's probably going to be one I'm not getting to a lot of, even though he has won at Vegas here 2 times next to Aaron. And Logano's one of these guys where, you know, he sneaks into the playoffs and then he just starts winning races at the end of the year. So it won't surprise me if he does it, but I'm not going to be able to jam in everybody. Christopher Bell, I think he runs very well, but I do worry about his lack of being able to potentially get up front and dominate. I think he's probably a top 5 guy throughout the entire day, but unless he gets up front and dominates at $11,200, seems a bit expensive to me. It's going to be kind of tough to pay that price tag. I want to believe in Kyle Larson. I am concerned with the speed we have seen over the back half of this season, but with how good he is at Vegas, I'm just going to have to buy into him some. I feel like he'll burn me like he has been, but Larson and Byron, I'm probably just gonna fall for it again. But I will go back to the Hendrick cars. They got to be good again at some point, right? Ryan Blaney does offer the most place differential of this group. So if you're kind of looking of more of a floor play to pair with a guy starting closer to the front, I am fine with it. We know Ryan Blaney is a top 5 contender basically everywhere this season. If we're looking at his numbers this season in 13 race sample size, the thing is he doesn't qualify as well as these others. So sometimes his average running position is a bit lower because he has to work his way through traffic. But he's been a top dominator. He's been very good this year. But right now, I do think William Byron is leading the way for me, which does sound a bit scary. But it really does kind of feel like a mix and match approach up there. I'm not really confident in saying I'm going to slam 80% of this guy or nearly lock him because he just looks like the clear-cut top dominator. All right, 9K range. You just have a handful of drivers here: Chastain, Reddick, Elliott, and Briscoe. Man, Briscoe is just an impossible guy for me to get right. Sometimes when it feels like I should be on him, it ends up I shouldn't be. And where I really just don't have much interest at all, he ends up going out front and dominates like half the race or the entire race, basically. I forget which track he did that to me, and it was not a fun day at the end. But this feels like one of those times where I don't want to play Briscoe, but I probably should. I mean, he was fast in practice. He starts on the front row. There is a chance he could beat out Denny Hamlin early on. And if he does that, he has the clean air. Chase Briscoe could dominate stage 1, and he's going to stay up front pretty much the entire day. We know Martin Truex Jr. in this 19 car was able to have really good runs at Vegas. So I think Chase Briscoe firmly needs to be in that dominator pool. That's one of those reasons where I'm saying, like, I don't really think there's just a clear-cut top dom. Of course, William Byron was the best in practice, but Chase Briscoe was also very good. He's got a little bit cleaner air to start the race. So it's going to be very difficult up front this weekend. Chase Elliott in a similar boat, but I do trust Chase Briscoe more to get up front. Although I do think he'll be fast, but I think Briscoe has shown the ability to get up front and dominate more than Elliott has so far this season. Tyler Reddick is good at Vegas. He's no longer in the playoffs, but neither is any of the 2311 cars, so it's not like one is going to have more resources than the other going into it this weekend. He'll probably be a borderline top 5 guy, has a little bit more PD. I'm probably going to end up liking him more than Chase Elliott, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up projecting better than Chase Briscoe with the extra added PD. And Tyler Reddick, like we showed, he's been one of the best cars at these style of tracks this year. He's very good at Vegas. I know he doesn't have the top 5s to show for it as the other guys, especially compared to Ross Chastain, but I imagine he's going to be someone that can pick up fast laps throughout the race, and at that suppressed price point, it's like you're paying $11K for him. I think he's probably going to be a very strong tournament play. Same could be said for Ross Chastain, although he's going to start in 15, so nearly double the spots further back, but he was very fast in the long run. Second in the 15 lap, second on the 20, and second on the 25. And his numbers at Vegas specifically, for whatever reason, he runs very well here. Has the best average finish in the next gen, one of the best running positions, and in 7 races, 5 top 5s and 6 top 10s. For only $9,000, we don't have much PD back here. I think Ross is going to end up projecting as a very solid play. Now, I do think he lacks the dominator potential some of these guys have. Like, I would say Chase Briscoe has a lower floor than Ross Chastain, but I would say he probably has a much higher ceiling, if that makes sense, because I really don't think Ross is going to get up front. Meanwhile, Chase Briscoe could get up front and lead 100 laps. I don't really think that's in the cards for Ross Chastain. Dropping down to the 8K range, just a bunch of tournament plays here. Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, and Alex Bowman. And this is a very difficult slate. The more I go down the list, it's like almost all these guys feel the same. Now, we're finally going to get something mixed up here because we're going to have Busch, Keselowski with place differential. But it just seems very, very murky up until this point. I'm probably not going to get to too much Buescher personally starting at 11th. I think I'd rather just find the extra $500 for Ross Chastain. Now, that's site specific because on FanDuel, only $8,200. He's going to be a borderline top 10 guy. At that price point, it's a lot more appealing than it is $8,500 on DraftKings. Bubba Wallace, I play every single week, and that is not going to change. He was one of the better cars in practice, and while he doesn't have exactly elite numbers at Las Vegas, from what we've seen from Bubba Wallace at these style of tracks this year, he brings speed every single time. He qualified basically the same as Tyler Reddick, and they were both very quick. If you're looking at his consecutive lap runs in practice, 5th, 2nd, 5th, 7th, 6th, 4th, 4th, like not elite, but in the lap by lap data, he looked very good. So I think he's going to be another tournament play. I basically write him up in my article every single week in tournament spot. And it's like a running joke at this point. I don't even delete him. I just leave him there. And then I write a new piece for him each weekend, but he is like a permanent spot in my GPP pool. And Alex Bowman, he is the lone Hendrick car, not in the playoffs. So that always does concern me a bit. If he was a little bit cheaper, I might have more interest, or starting a little bit further back. I would say he's a similar play to Bubba Wallace, but I'm going to give a slight edge to Bubba, and he might end up being slightly lower owned just due to the lack of PD, similar to Bowman. But I really don't think anybody in this 8K range is going to eat up much ownership, because if we're looking at the 7K range, people are going to be hungry for PD. There is no PD up here. So once they see Busch with a 32nd, Keselowski with a 34th, they're going to eat this up. So all these guys are fine cash PD plays. I'm not going to be excited about any of them. Even Hocevar, Josh Berry down here, 29th and 22nd. Josh Berry did win this race earlier in the season, although we've kind of seen his speed completely zapped besides that New Hampshire race where he nearly won. And Penske overall this weekend doesn't look like they're bringing too much speed either. I mean, Austin Cindric in 31st. Even though he's been pretty fast at the intermediates, he did look a lot better in the longer runs, although those guys did run that in practice. But, I mean, yes, it's obvious Busch and Keselowski will have ownership. Austin Cindric and Josh Berry are still going to have ownership. Carson Hocevar might be the best tournament pivot in this 7K range. He did look the fastest in practice. And we know Hocevar nearly has race-winning speed at times at these intermediates. The problem is he just can't finish races or something always goes wrong. But I'm fairly confident in basically everybody in this range moving up, maybe outside of Ty Gibbs. I would say he's definitely the most likely candidate to end up moving back. But this year at larger tracks, intermediates, Kyle Busch, average running position of 19th, average finish 17th. Keselowski, basically the same. Ty Gibbs, basically the same. A little bit better in the average running position department. Cindric, the best average running position of this group at 15.1. He starts in 31st. And then we have Josh Berry a little bit lower, and then Carson Hocevar at 15.8. But the average finish definitely doesn't show up. And that's what I said. Like, he's very volatile, unfortunately. And that's what we have to deal with Carson Hocevar. But due to this, all this place differential right here, I really think it does zap away the ownership to guys like Alex Bowman and Bubba Wallace. And even Ty Gibbs, although I do kind of slightly prefer Bubba Wallace and Bowman there. Dropping down to the 6K range, Ryan Preece, Daniel Suarez feels like a pretty nasty play. So at $6,700 starting in 17th. We have AJ Allmendinger in 20th, SVG in 13th. Very high qualifying for him. That's pretty surprising to me. Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, and Michael McDowell. Nothing really screams to play them here. I would say my favorites are probably going to end up being Ryan Preece and AJ Allmendinger. Ryan Preece has been a top 10 machine at these style of tracks. If you're looking at his 13 race sample size, average finish of 14.8, average running position of 16.4, 7 top 10s. We haven't seen someone with 7 top 10s since Bubba Wallace and Chris Buescher in that price range. And then after that, we're talking guys like Chase Briscoe. That's only 1 below a guy, or 2 below a guy like Denny Hamlin that's tied with Ryan Blaney. So Ryan Preece honestly been very, very solid. And starting in 16th, I don't think a lot of people are going to end up getting there. So I think Preece is probably going to end up making the tournament pool. Someone I want to be overweight on both sides. Daniel Suarez, I think he ends up moving back. AJ Allmendinger, he's been a tough nut to crack this year. Sometimes he'll just be running 6th for no reason, or sometimes he's running 25th. Very difficult to project. If we're looking at his practice speeds, at least in the consecutive lap averages for AJ Allmendinger, basically around 15th to 18th. So I think he's a likely top 20 contender. I don't think he's going to move much above that, but I would say he's got better finishing position potential than a guy like SVG or Daniel Suarez this week. So the 6K range to me, it looks like Dinger and Preece. Maybe a splash of Eric Jones, but not overly interested in that. 5K range, it's always going to be nasty. We have the absolute bottom feeders down here with Ty Dillon, Herbst, Cody Ware, JJ Yeley, and Catherine Legg. Usually if I am punting, if I'm looking for a punt, I end up going with Ty Dillon. I do believe Riley Herbst, he is from Las Vegas, and his practice speeds honestly weren't too bad compared to these other guys. Like 26th in the one lap, 24th and 23rd. So he is $4,800. He is in a 2311 car. Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick do look fast. Of course, his car or himself is nowhere near talent-wise or speed-wise. But at $4,800, if you're trying to fit in multiple dominators up top, I don't hate the idea of punting with him or Ty Dillon. Don't think I would trust the bottom 3 at all. Cole Custer starting way too high up. Justin Haley was a little bit quicker in practice than he was in qualifying, but it's probably a bit fool's goldish to me. Stenhouse, Dillon, none of these guys look appealing at all, unfortunately. I always say Zane Smith's probably the most likely candidate to get a top 20 out of the bottom feeders. But the problem is he never really offers too much place differential upside, which kind of leads to giving that lower floor, lower ceiling, and just a little bit scarier to click on, which I fully understand. But with that being said, that's all for this week's video, and I apologize if I rushed through things or sound a little off. I'm very sick, but I was able to record, so everything worked out. But that's all I got for today's video, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Scott Champ for brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. I wish you the best, and I'll see y'all next time.